It's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you our chief keynote speaker for this afternoon, Vanitha Narayanan. Vanitha Narayanan is the Managing Director of IBM India Private Limited and the Regional General Manager for South Asia. Appointed to this leadership position in 2013 January, she is responsible for all of IBM sales, marketing, services, and global delivery operations in the India and South Asia region. So Vanitha was the first woman chairperson of AMCAM India, 2015-2016, and continues to serve as a member on the National Executive Board. In addition, she is a member of the National Council of Confederation of Indian Industry since 2013, co-chair of National Committee for MNCs of Confederation of Indian Industry, and was appointed the chairperson of the Board of Governors for National Institutes of Technology, heading NIT Surathkal, for a term of 3 years by the President of India. Vanitha is also one of the directors of Catalyst India Advisory Board. More recently, she was named as one of the 12 global Indian superwomen of 2016 by CXO Today. As one of the most powerful women in business in India, 2016 by Business Today, and conferred with the degree of Doctor of Letters by the L&M Institute of Information. As a person, Vanitha is exceptionally fond of cooking, investigating philosophy, and experiential traveling. I welcome Vanitha, friends. Thank you.
Good afternoon. You don't have to be a man to stand up on the stage and feel a little bit intimidated. So I want to thank Anita Borg Institute, Grace Harper, Geeta, Kelly for having me here to share this afternoon with you. It's a privilege and it's truly an honor. So thank you all for having me here. So before I get started, I want you guys to watch this.
What's it going to take to make this thing worth the price tag?
Well, we're just getting up to speed here, Mr. Harrison. I need more manpower. I need programmers, folks to feed the cars.
We'll get them for crying out loud.
Okay.
All right? You're the IBM man, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll pull them out of the sky if you have to.
Understood.
I'm not paying any of you.
When the first IBM came to NASA, it was not an easy transition.
No one thought to measure these things?
I'm afraid not, sir.
Nobody knew how to use it.
Computers were these big units that took up the whole entire wall.
There's more computing power in a toaster today than what was available to these people in the 1960s.
When Dorothy sees the IBM being built, she learns how to program them.
She realized really quickly that the IBM was going to be the wave of the future.
The IBM 7090 data processing system. It has the ability to solve problems that cannot be solved in a lifetime of manual labor.
Get it, girl.
What's your name again?
Dorothy Vaughn.
We need the IBM for Glenn's launch.
We got a job to do. Whatever happens up there, it's in God's hands.
My gals are ready. They can do the work. Ladies, we've been reassigned.
She basically saved her whole team's jobs and created a value for herself.
So funny what we think of as computers now and what they were then.
Okay, so that's not a movie about IBM. That's Hidden Figures. That's a trailer. It's going to be released on January 6, 2017. And what that tells you is behind every successful mission, there are women. So these are the women that put man on the moon. And we ought to feel proud about that. So if we go back and look at our history, so this is NASA, and this is what the NASA team says. During the space race, NASA's computers were women. So give a hand to those women. So when we look at our history, and this is just a quick history of women in technology in my company. We're over 100 years old, and therefore we have a long history. And there are many other companies represented here and others who have women who have had very impactful positions, not just in the last few years, but this is going back in the last century. So women in technology or women in positions that have made a difference, had an impact, not new. In fact, we had our very first woman in sales in the 100% Club 70 years ago in IBM. Now, women, sales, technology, not something, even today there are people who say, oh, is that for me? This was 70 years ago. When you look at some of the women who accomplished first fellow, first director, again, these were decades ago, decades ago. The reason I wanted to start with this is when we talk about what is possible, and we talk about it in the future, we talk about it in the present, but I wanted us to sort of step back and see that we as women here and we as women around the world have been a part of technology in many companies, in industry, and have had an impact, including sort of an aspirational moment for mankind, putting man on the moon, so man in space. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. Every time a little doubt creeps in, we don't have to prove something. We have proven it for long, many decades. We're here, we've earned it, and it has nothing to do with capability. So let's look at it a little more. So when I step back and say, what is it? It's about the art of the possible. In the timeline and the history charts that you saw, these were women at that point working in an industry. And when you look at Amazing Grace, who I don't know how many of you know that in this year, President Barack Obama recognized her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So, we got to acknowledge. And people like Grace, and then people like Anita Borg, Kelly, women visionaries, women pioneers who have set up different milestones for us all through history. But when you look at technology today, it has never been more pervasive. It has nothing anymore to do just with the IT industry. Today, technology is the heart of entertainment, heart of communication, heart of gaming, design, health tech, fintech, ed tech, you name it, it's part of everything we do. So when we step back and say, all right, you don't have to be in technology in a specific profession. Now it permeates professions. Today, marketing and technology are converged. There is not much marketing or customer, this is marketing for one, personalized, know your customer experience, part of all of that, technology. You look at HR, and I'm picking on these areas because sometimes we've thought of these as liberal arts professions and not necessarily technology. When you look at sourcing talent, recruiting talent, onboarding talent, growing talent, retaining talent, it's all about analytics. It's about understanding that individual, aspiration, technology at the heart of it. And then when you look at the digital world today really makes it easy and makes technology very consumable. So I know my first interaction with programming was taking a COBOL class. But when you look at taking a COBOL class or what you had to go through or program in JCL, today those journeys are not that difficult because computer science has advanced, programming languages have advanced, and today we're living in a world of easy, consumable technology. So that now says we have time and we need to build context. The context can be an industry context, it can be a professional context, it can be an artistic context. It is about bringing the two together. So ladies and gentlemen, the time has never been better for women in technology. Believe it, it's here. This is the best time for us as women to celebrate technology in all of its form. So if it is that possible, then what is it? It's about it is about the change within you. Because the boundaries, yes, there are always boundaries, there are always biases, and they'll always exist. But it comes back to you. So let me start with, Chitra talked about my bio, but my educational qualifications, I'm a liberal arts major. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a computer scientist. My first job interview with IBM, 1987, October, I went to St. Louis, Missouri for my job interview, and here I am, interviewing with one of the technology icon companies, which I had heard of even when I lived in India, and a little bit of this insecurity, my God, they do know that I don't have a computer science or an engineering degree. But they recruited me. 29 years later, I'm still here. And if I had approached that job at any point in time, and by the way, my very first account, my client, so I was made an industry specialist trainee in the telecom industry. And a very, very large US client and I was put on that account. And I started to work in the network area. And if we thought IT was technical, the network is just as much, if not more. So I could not approach it with this view that I don't have the background for this job, because it was about learning. It was staying on your toes, bring whatever you need to do, and learn, and you're like a duck with your feet absolutely, paddling away below the water, but you're calm on top and you keep going. So I always say, for anyone who says, oh, how do you do this, or how is it that you manage technical people, or you work with technical people, and amazingly technical people, I said, you don't have to be a watchmaker to tell time. You just need to know what you need to know at that point in time, and as long as you have aptitude and attitude, that trumps qualifications any day. So my first lesson to you, attitude, aptitude. Second thing that we sort of typically, I think, as women, oh, am I qualified enough? Is that something I'm going to be able to do? This is something that I think everyone tends to have these self-doubts, but you don't let those self-doubts hold you back. So if I look back at things that have worked for me, I think beyond that first day of my interview, I never thought about what my qualification or what my background was. That was the only time I think I felt a little insecure going in on that October day. After that, it was about embracing every opportunity that came my way and giving it the best that I could on that day. So it was, I believe, about 15 or 20 years ago, I had my first executive interview with a very, very senior IBM vice president. And I didn't know what an executive interview was. Young men and women today are far more self-aware, are far more aware and plan for their careers, at least than I did. So I walked into this executive interview, not quite knowing what to expect, because I'd never had one of them. And this gentleman, his name is Doug Elix, and he asked me, so what do you want to do next? I had no answer. I said, to be honest with you, I don't know. I've never thought about what I wanted to do next. I said, every time I turn around, somebody gives me an opportunity, and I just take it and I go along. He said, now he could have turned around and said, oh my God, here's somebody and she doesn't know what to do. His response was, good for you. There are too many people sitting around worrying about the next job that they forget to do the job that they have. So focus on the job that you have, do it well, and the next job will show up. So, and I think that's something that I have held on to this day. To this day, I don't worry about the next job. I don't think about that next job, because the job that I am in today absolutely will consume me. Now, about 8 or 9 years ago, when I first moved to India, that was the first time I was being given a role which was outside the telecommunications industry. And that was the other time I had this little bit of doubt. Here I am, I'm a career telecom person. I'm passionate about this industry. I love this client set, and I think it's the most exciting industry in the world. Now I'm moving away from this industry to some general management roles. How am I going to deal with that? Am I going to be excited about it? So one of my bosses and mentors, Gary Cohen, so I said, Gary, I'm not sure I can feel as passionate or as excited about something outside the telecom industry. And Gary looked at me and said, not a doubt. You're going to be passionate no matter what you do. Don't worry about it. Gary was right. So I haven't had to look back. It's not the role, it's you. It comes back to you. It's how excited you are about that role, how passionate you are about that role, that actually makes you, on any given day, bring your best to the table and then have fun with it. Because if you're not going to have fun with the role you have, there's no point chasing something that might never come. Okay? So keep that in mind. And as we look through sort of a couple of other things, it is, in every one of these areas, the other thing that people always say is about confidence. It's about conviction. I'll share with you another piece of advice that I was sent to one of the senior leadership training events at IBM a couple of decades ago, a decade and a half ago. And part of that, they gave you, you were put in different situations and you were assessed and you were given, a feedback form. And part of that was, Vanitha needs to be more assertive. So I come back and I share that with my boss and he says, God help us all. So, he thought I was assertive enough. But when I thought about why I got that comment, it was, we were in a panel discussion. Obviously, it was a scenario. I had an idea, which I put out there, and this gentleman next to me, who was quite opinionated, kept wanting to talk. I put this idea out again, and he kept wanting to talk, and I switched off. I said, you know what, this is play acting anyway, so never mind, he really loves his idea, let him go on with it. So I got written up on that. And when I shared that with my then mentor, she had a piece of advice which I share with a lot of women that I talk to. She said, you know what, when you do not, if it's not about you, a lot of women are not very comfortable raising their voice over a louder voice. They're not very comfortable with making that point over and over again. But it's not about you. Don't make it personal to you. Because on a given day, make it about the idea. Because if your idea was the best idea and you didn't fight for that idea, then the IBM company loses. Because the best idea did not win the day. So that's something else for each of you to keep in mind. Anytime you're a little hesitant and don't want to raise your voice that much or want to fight that much harder, if you believe your idea is the best idea, pull yourself back and fight for the idea. That'll ensure that your idea, if it is the best idea, serves you and serves your company well, and it's part of your growth. So these are just a few things I wanted to share with you. Now, I actually want to bring a couple of amazing women that I've had the pleasure, and I have the pleasure of working with. So I'm going to invite two of my colleagues, Priya Kannan and Shalini Kapoor, over on the stage. Please give them a hand. So Priya is in our power systems development team, and Shalini is our distinguished engineer leading our IoT businesses globally. So, so I have a little story. So I met Priya in May of this year. We had, starting February of this year, we had something that we called the Cognitive Challenge. This is something our chairman launched because she wanted all IBMers around the world to really understand what cognitive was about, how it would affect us. So this was a competition around the world, and from India, we had humongous participation. So earlier we heard India is where it's happening. Of the top 50 teams, 25 teams had members from India. So again, proves that talent and technical talent is vibrant in India. So Priya was one of the teams, and her idea or their team was presenting the Cloud Buddy. And that's how she and I met when we went to Austin, Texas. So I'm going to chat with Priya, and I want to hear from her, some of the thoughts. So Priya,
thanks, ma'am.
Tell me what made you step out of your day job, because you build systems, and Cognitive Buddy and Cloud Buddy and Cognitive Challenge was a little bit different than your day job. So what made you step out and step into this opportunity?
Sure. So first of all, thanks everyone for having me on stage here. So I just have to answer ma'am's question in a different way. Like early this year, around February, like our chairman was here right on this stage along with ma'am. And I was one of the participants at the extreme back rows out there. Like I was just dropping in to hear their talk at the town hall. And that is when our CEO announced about the Cognitive Build Challenge. Not that I am complaining about those seating arrangements on the back rows. I am a congenital backbencher, by the way. So having said that, like I was not even able to look at them. I was so far away that I watched them only on those big screens that were mounted across the hall. But then the message from our CEO was very clear that we want every line of business to engage in the cognitive opportunities, use the cognitive technologies like what IBM Watson is providing, and then like build prototypes and ideas around them. So like that really ring the bell. So I really, I am a passionate observer of IBM Watson on the news. Like for those of you who are not aware, please look up what Watson is doing in the IBM in the Manipal hospitals here in Bangalore doing cancer diagnosis. So that's the scale of technology. So like I was really passionate about that, and that's when I thought like I come from the data center management and administration background. So at that time, I made it a point that I would use this technology in my line of business to actually make a change. So that is when I participated in this technology. That is what made me build a team around me and then proceed on to this challenge.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things is Priya and the team were part of 50 teams that went to Austin. Then she and her team were part of the 8 teams that came up and presented to our chairman, a couple of our clients, and me in the final round. And they were among the top teams globally to actually win the day. So Priya, tell me, and what really impressed me is some of the feedback that we gave, how quickly she and the team incorporated it. So tell me about the experience about, again, you go from data center management to being in front of your chairman and live stream across the globe presenting Cloud Buddy.
Yep.
So tell me, how did you get over that right. Introverted you?
Yes. So yeah, you got it right there. So I'm an introvert, so I'm absolutely happy hiding behind my computer and then working away through the night if need be. But frankly speaking, I did not know or did not realize what I was getting into. Well, it was a technical challenge, like I do it on a day-to-day basis, so that is why I went back and then put my time on building the prototype. But it so turned out that I had to meet people. Like it was a challenge where it required us to get the other co-IBMers support in terms of investment. And if we were to stay in the game, it was like $1 million in blue money that we had to collect. So like having said that, even though I had a great team that was helping me with doing all this campaigning and marketing, like there was a time that the competition was ahead of us, and if we were to stay on the game, everybody on the team had to be on board. So that is when I started out, and through compulsion, I started networking, and I just realized that after a long time, I enjoyed the networking, because after a 45 minutes pitch to complete strangers, a group of 50 people, they stood up and clapped, and they said like they wished us all the luck in our competition. So like that was what got me from, that is what I got out of this challenge. So speaking of the feedbacks, yes, like once we got through this phase when we were the top 50 teams, like then it was like go India go, right? So like we had so many executives and so many directors like who were closely engaging with us, and then they gave all the feedback, right? Like I mean, it was like we were at a point like overwhelmed with the feedback that we had to incorporate. But then, like one thing was very clear, like either you take the feedback in the right sense, like do the postmortem on the feedback, and then incorporate like what is best to you, because the people who are giving the feedback also intend to take you forward. So that way, like we got very great feedbacks from ma'am as well. And we made a great show, like we made it into the top 50, and then we were one of the 8 teams presenting to Ginny live at Austin. Yeah.
Excellent. And I have to tell you this, when Priya and her team were presenting to the clients and the chairman, one of the questions to her was, but why are you doing this with cognitive? There are people who can do this with bots. So she looks this man right in the eye and she says, between my partner and I, we have 25 years of experience doing this. Trust me, we know what you're doing. So the confidence was, so give Priya a hand, please.
Thank you.
So Shalini, come on over. A couple of questions for you. So Shalini is one of our very first women distinguished engineers minted from India. So, and I always tell people that you can get vice presidents and general managers, and there are many, many of us, but at the heart of our company are our distinguished engineers and our fellows. We revere them. So for me, having Shalini and having any distinguished engineer from India is special. And this year, having a couple of women join the ranks and being some of the trailblazers was even more special. So Shalini, congratulations. So Shalini, if I go back and ask you, because very often we talk about role models, we talk about, people want to know how do you plan your career? Clearly, when you started your career with IBM in India, there were not a whole lot of distinguished engineers or fellows here for you to say, that's what I want to be. So tell me a little bit about how you got started on this journey.
Okay. Yeah, at that time, there were not even men distinguished engineers, forget women. So I think for me, if I see from a role model perspective, even when I was a small child, or the first time in 10th standard when I was told that you have to choose a subject, and I chose maths, that was like it was not taken well. Because in my whole school, there was only one girl who had taken maths 3 years back. And I am from a small town in UP. I am from Bareilly, and there were not girls around who would take maths. So that was a challenge. And I said, I will do maths, and I will graduate out of that. And at that time, I made the boys in my class as my role models. That if they can do it, then I can also do it. I somehow didn't look for a woman. And then when I went into my engineering, again, I took computer science, and I thought all the girls were taking electronics. I said, let me try with that. So again, it was a challenge, which I thought, I can do it. And later down the line, when I was in IBM, and there were many times when in boardrooms, I was the only female there. And I used to like it quite a lot because I only knew the answer. Nobody else knew the answer which the client was asking. And I would get up and just go and explain it to people, right? And suddenly people will say, oh yeah, she's a role model. And I would say, what have I done? So it's always been that, you look and you do whatever you are doing, you want to do it the best. You want to embrace the challenge, you want to take it up, and you can always find role models. If you don't have it in women, you find it in men. So I've always had a lot of men mentoring me, and a lot of women also mentoring me, and I also look sidewise. Like I look in businesses, VPs, directors, because they are also doing time management, they are also working in client situations, so they can always mentor you in those situations. One very interesting thing is I take I take a lot of inspiration even from, Bollywood heroines. I like Kajol because, she came back to work. She's working, even after 2 kids. I think that is also interesting. So it's funny, but, you can find role models and mentors, and you want to do your role the best. So I wanted to be a CTO. I wanted to be a DE because I thought that in technology, I want to reach the highest. So that's how it is.
Excellent. So you lead Internet of Things. And if I recall, you were working with Internet of Things long before it became fashionable.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how you started on that journey, because today Shalini leads a lot of development in INEA Software Labs for a lot of our global work as well on IoT. So tell me a little bit about the journey, because that was not a very clear path to be on.
Exactly. So I started working on Internet of Things almost 6 years back. At that point of time, there were hardly anybody working on it, and there are a lot of people who advised me that, don't put your bets on this. It's going to take a lot of time. It will take 10 years. But I started, putting disclosures, patents. It was so early in the day. And there was a small group of team who was with me. And they continued to with me, even though we had incubation proposals and we had, just small innovation projects which were happening. Now, so one thing which I want to say is that, there's a myth that women are not risk-taking, right? We say that we don't want to take risks, and though essentially we are very risk, right? We love risks. We leave our homes. We are ready to take risks with the guy whom we marry or don't marry, right? So we take risks. But in our jobs, we say, no, we don't take risks, right? So I said that, we have to show that, I am risk-taking. I want to prove it to the technical leaders that I can take risk on this technology. So I actually took a risk on mobile, and around 8-9 years back, I started working on mobile, but somehow it didn't pan out. I didn't get the right benefit out of it or ROI out of it. And then when I put in IoT, I was excited about it. I could create a lot of excitement about it, and I kept on creating some innovations around it, and I just stuck to it. That's it. All I did was perseverance, and I said that, this is how we will continue. I went and talked to our senior VPs in Armonk, which is our headquarters, and told them that we should have a business unit on this, because that's the big potential. And all that I was doing was suddenly recognized, and a lot of people then in IBM and also outside in the industry, IoT became big and buzzword, but the idea was I took risk. And I always see that in technical people, if you take risk, people will just follow you, because nobody wants to fail. They want to put their bets on a technology which is up on the upward trend. So that's how it turned out.
Excellent. So ladies, join me in giving Priya and Shalini a hand. Thank you. Thank you both. So the reason I wanted you all to hear from them is, in that journey, Priya doing data center management, as she said, an introverted person from Tamil Nadu, grew up, not much. Suddenly, she's building an idea. She's acting like a startup because we had to raise funds within the company. So she's now a startup. She's presenting in front of the chairman, which a lot of senior executives don't get to do at very senior levels of the company, and clients to a global audience. And if a year ago you had asked Priya, hey, tell me about network, she'd have probably talked to you about the data center network. Today you're hearing her talk about the importance of a network, because it helps you build your idea, sell your idea, work your idea, and get feedback, have an influence, and have an impact, okay? And Shalini, if you look at, if we wait for something to appear, and then that's the journey we're going to be on, some of these journeys would never happen. In the last 2 years, we've heard so much about the Internet of Things, but I've seen Shalini to work on the Internet of Things, and what has made Shalini, it's about her technical eminence, it's about her personal eminence, and it's about what we've done, throughout as a company. So 2 things I want to leave you with as I wrap up. Anytime we have a journey, don't let our biases, envelop others. And the reason I say that is many of you here have daughters. And I'll finish with this. Last week, I had this young lady from National Public School in Bangalore, 15 years old, who came to meet me at my office. She's going to share the stage with me day after. And her comment to me was, why are there not many hackathons for young girls? We can do this as well as anywhere. She has 2 startups, by the way. And she said, I asked her, when did you start doing it? She says, I only got started with computing in 8th grade. The only regret I have is I wish I'd started in 5th grade. And people like you should do more about making technology available to girls like me. So for every one of you who has little sisters, daughters, etc., let us not impose our reality on the next generation and the next generation, because, as I said, the time has never been better. Many of you are digital natives. Our children and our grandchildren, in my case, will be digital, absolutely born digital. The opportunities are limitless, and I wish every one of you journeys and success that you cannot even envision today. God bless you.
Vanitha, that was such an illuminating one. I'm sure the audience has questions. Would you be able to take a few questions from the people there? Would you be able to take a few questions?
Absolutely.
People, we have about 8 minutes, let's say, for the audience question time. Very quickly, if you can put your hands up, the number of questions that Vanitha can answer at this point. Quickly identify yourself. I request you to keep the questions crisp and short.
Hello, hi, Vanitha, I'm Anshuma, and truly inspired by you and the women who came along with you. The question that I have for you today is, what is the legacy that you would like to leave behind?
Oh my God. You can't think about your legacy just as you cannot think about your next job. Because if you're thinking about your legacy, you're going to mess yourself up. My only thing is I've had a lot of great male leaders and bosses, and who I am today is them and also my family. I will not be honest if I say I can be here without my husband and my mother and my mother-in-law, people who have put me here today. So if I can be for a generation of people what those people have done for me, give them that confidence, push them a little when they're not willing to push themselves or when they're not quite sure, then I think I'll be happy.
All right. Thank you.
Towards the center, yeah, lady, if you could just stand up, please. Yes. If a mic could be reached to her.
Let me ask. Hello, yeah. My name is Rizwana. You said like you don't look for the another job, right? So it goes as be contented with what you have. However, my question is like as a newcomer, what would you be like, to look higher, to aim high? So this is like contradicting, like where you are, you just work it and it should come towards you. That's not fair, right? So we should be looking, create the opportunities, like something like that. So what would you say that?
No, I think I got it. So you didn't hear me use the word content. I said, do the job you have today really well. Okay? So it's not about content. It's about growing yourself and challenging yourself, right? So when you've got to a point, there are 2 ways you can look at it. Every time I did, because I spent 10 years with a client, but every year, by the way, I've been with IBM 29 years, I've never written my resume, ever. But every year, I sit up at the front of the, beginning of the year and I say, what skills do I need to add to my resume, my imaginary resume this year? Because if I'm not growing, and if I'm not adding to my skills, then I'm falling behind. So it's not about, yes, there are some people who are blessed with big goals, who have the vision, know where they want to go, and that's absolutely fine. But the key is you're constantly growing, constantly challenging yourself, keeping your skills at a level that's relevant, and doing the job that you have well. Yeah?
Right, so we could have that question now. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Sneha. So in between, there came a point where you said that when men and women come together, that's the time you get like the best sort of an output. So how can we get this kind of a culture, like beginning at the college level itself? Like, what are the sort of things that should be done?
So, I don't even think you need to wait till college, right? Because again, I know there are still schools which are girls only, boys only, and then the colleges which are girls only, boys only, etc. But today, there are so many opportunities for finding areas of interest, right? Because there are kids who want to code. One of the mantras I like to look at as the largest programming base or will be in the world, Code in India. And that is an equal opportunity. So you're absolutely right. When you talk about diversity, it's not diversity about just gender diversity. It is about diversity to get the best outcome, to get the best out of the situation, whether it's home, whether it's work, wherever it is. So I would say encourage, find ways where you can not only work or be in diverse groups. They can be diverse genders, but they can also be diverse culturally, diverse in terms of capabilities. If you're technically oriented, maybe you want to hang out with somebody who is more art-oriented, design-oriented. Because in today's world, context is very important, and being able to work with a diverse group is very important. So sometimes these opportunities don't present themselves in an easy way. But as long as you're aware that you're not always sticking within a comfort zone with people just like you, who think just like you, that becomes the trap. So put yourself out of your comfort zone and find other interests which will actually help your thought process grow as well. Yeah?
Some great advice there. Put yourself out of your comfort zone. Last few questions.
Hello, this is Priyanka. And I had a question. How do you identify implicit bias? And do you think that it is worth it to work with people who have an implicit bias against you once you've identified it?
I wasn't able to hear you clearly. I know you said something about bias. Or if someone
Hello?
can.
Hello?
I
said, how do you identify implicit bias? And if you do identify, do you think it's worth it to even work with the people who have implicit bias against you? Because that's more effort.
Yeah, see, I think we all know, and this is about self-awareness. So when you come to conferences like this, when you network, and now there are so many different networking groups that you can be part of, this helps improve your own self-awareness. So when you go back to an environment where you confront bias, you actually know it's bias. And you don't always have to be confrontational, okay? Because confronting makes the other party also defensive, uncomfortable, and in many cases, you have to work with these people. But the moment you recognize there's a bias, I think you start pushing. You start pushing, and you're pushing not because you're a woman. You're pushing because you've got something to contribute that's of value that is not getting heard in that room that day, or not getting a seat at the table, right? So that's, and for me, when I've seen, I can't honestly say that I have been even, sort of bogged down by bias, because I always sort of approach a situation thinking whatever I have to contribute will be embraced. And I'm sure there have been along the way, and sometimes, so I would say, don't be overly conscious where you interpret everything as bias, but when you do it, push back, and for me, humor works, but it has to work for you. So when I find a situation where somebody is being, I think, a little retarded, then, I sort of, push back with a little bit of humor. But you've got to find what works for you and be true to yourself. Yeah.
The lady in pink, yes, please go ahead. Yes, you holding the mic.
Hi, ma'am. It's really motivating. I'm sorry, I am Tulika, and I'm from Veritas. And it's really motivating to see you sharing your ideas. And as Shalini said, that we can find our role model every day. So for me, you are the role model for the day. And yeah, I would...
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would really want to know, as you said, that we should do our things really well, what are we doing? But then don't we get stuck up with what we are doing at the moment? Doesn't it get monotonous? And then are all of us lucky to really have opportunity, just as lucky as you were to have opportunities at every stage of life? So how do we get out of it, and how do we actually stand out? And it's really, really nice to see you there on stage, and it's a dream for me, and I'm sure for all of us, to see ourselves on the stage there.
So my life has not been glamorous. So for any of you who think my life has been glamorous, trust me, people who know me know it's far from glamorous. See, life happens. I know you say jobs, but life happens, and this is something I think I need. My husband and I worked, and I had a 3-year-old, and we had to juggle, right? There are times when you're doing a role where you've got to travel, it's not so much monotony, but how am I going to deal with the job and home? You go through life and you say, oh my God, I've got, old parents or in-laws, and there's things. There are times when an opportunity comes by, and then, oh, my husband's job, my job, our child. All of this happens. There is no magic plan, right? But so one of the things all of us, we say work-life integration and all of that balance, but I would like to say life happens, and today, men, don't treat it as your life, your responsibility, not your fathers, your husbands, your brothers, your sons. It's the life is your life. You'll deal with the life situations together. In terms of job monotony, I had the same client for 10 years. In India, when I first came to India and I said I'd spent 19 years in one industry, 10 years on the same client, and people would look at me because my teams here expected a different job every 2 years. So I used to tell them, guys, I'm not as smart as you, I'm just a slow learner. So it took me a little longer. But in those 10 years, I grew. In those 20 years, I grew. As I said, there is nothing wrong in looking for the next opportunity. Absolutely do. You don't want to get caught in a rut. But being caught in a rut is not just about the job. It's also about your state of mind and how much you're willing to push yourself, not just in the job. Because, for example, Priya does systems hardware development. She sees the opportunity to be part of a startup and do an AI cognitive solution. So there will be opportunities, and in this room we had 5,000 IBMers that my chairman addressed. But not all 5,000 IBMers took the challenge the way Priya did. This is why I say, when you look at it, a lot of it is you. The opportunities are out there. It's about how you interpret it and how you seize it, and it's absolutely about carpe diem.
Thank you, Vanitha. That's all that we have the time for. I know you have many, many questions, but all good things come in small packages. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Vanitha Narayanan.
Thank you.
I request you to stay back on stage, and I invite Terrace Whitney to please come up and hand over a token of gratitude, a memento, to express her appreciation for giving such pragmatic takeaway advice. When it comes from someone like her who's really been there, done that, then you know that the advice is good to go in your work space and life.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that was...
Some awesome takeaways in this session, as clearly even your response showed. Once again, a huge round of applause for this keynote at the Grace Hopper Celebration India.